Hi, I'm Bryony Montgomery from Women's Inner Wisdom and BryonyMontgomery.com. And I thought I'd jump on today and do a little video recording for you. Generally, I do a little article or a big article weekly for my subscriber list. And this week I decided that I would jump on and do a video blog, which is actually a format that I'm looking into doing more regularly on specific topics. And the reason today, I'm not kind of doing a specific topic today, but the reason today that I decided to hop on here and do a video for you is because of the events that have been happening in the world these last few weeks. And as you have been aware, if you haven't been watching me through the social media, or if you have, that I've been really vocal on the whole anti-racism debate or situation that's happening in the world right now. And what I wanted to do today was just sort of bring my voice, my physical presence here on my property into what's going on in the world right now. To be honest and really heartfelt, I may stumble here in finding the right words and conveying how I'm feeling right now with what's happening globally as well as internally. But if I can backtrack a few months ago, there was conversations that I was witnessing and seeing with people of colour and white people in the communities that I'm involved in. And as a white woman, I was so confronted by what this idea of white supremacy, and about what it is to be anti-racist, what it is to be racist, because to be honest, I never felt that I was racist. I'm a very accepting and open person. I've been raised I'm an Australian, so I've been raised in a very colonial culture, and not outwardly racist family, but I had identified many years ago that there were streams of racism underlying, in the words and the stories, and how my family of origin interacted with those people that were a different colour, a different culture, a different race, Indigenous. And so when I started on my journey as an energy healer 20 years ago, I went right through those storylines in my family of origin and within myself, and I made a choice then that I wouldn't stand for racism, what I thought was racism. So I've been actively working on, standing up to racist comments, racist undertoning for a long time. But I still didn't, up till a few months ago, understand what racism was, and I certainly did not have any idea. I thought I knew to some degree what our Indigenous and Black community and people of colour were going through, but upon the conversations that I've been listening to and that I've been taking in, and the information I've been learning and reading, I had absolutely no idea. And I could never have any idea what it is to be an Indigenous or person of colour in 2020 and walking in the shoes and the origins and even the experiences that their ancestors have had. I've had my own story with homeschooling my children recently, and we've been focusing on Indigenous Australia and the colonisation, the white colonisation of Australia and the Indigenous people here, and how the atrocities and the murder and the eradication of such a beautiful and old, the oldest culture, Indigenous people in the world. And I've been shocked and in tears with my children reading Younger Dark Emu to my girls and going, this is not what I was taught at school. As an Australian, this is not, and I'm just shocked that we have been misled in this country for, in respect to the white colonisation, the white settlement here, and how the whole country's structured. And I'm at, I'm just at the beginning of what that is, even for me, for my country and the Indigenous people of my country. When I saw George Floyd's, the footage of George Floyd, I broke. I had no idea about my part in it. I had no idea about my family's part in it. I had no idea that I wasn't owning it. The work that I do as an energy healer is the work that I is to have the hard conversations. It's to illuminate the places. I've talked about child sexual abuse, which I'll continue to talk about from my own experience and my family's experience. I will talk about the shadow. I will talk about domestic violence and shine a light on domestic violence and women's empowerment and women's rights and minority groups. But this was not an area that I had really looked at within myself or in my community, or an area that I kind of felt that it had been covered. But I didn't know how to have the conversations about racism and about my experience, and in that conversation was also about listening to people who are having that experience, people of colour, Black people and Indigenous people, and how they are walking in this every day. And I noticed, and I'm going to be really honest here, I noticed that I'm conditioned, because I was raised in a racist culture, I'm conditioned to look at these people, the Indigenous people around me and people of colour, and I have witnessed feelings or belief systems rise in me, judgments rise in me, and being a person that I would say as open and willing to go to those hard places and have those hard conversations, I've seen, an aspect of myself that I didn't know existed. And I've just had, an extraordinary unbottling of something within me that I'm still working through and still trying to find where I'm rooted into it. The root for me is I'm actively anti-racist. That's the stance that I now take. That's what I talk about with my children. That's what I talk about with my husband. That's what I'm talking about in my community. And what that means for me is learning and listening to Indigenous and people of colour, lifting them up, supporting them. I didn't even really have a big group of Indigenous or people of colour, friends, or even in the business that I do. I'm just like blown away by how I've been conditioned to create a life as a white woman in such a particular way that I don't need to look at this stuff. And so as a healer, for the work that I do, this is my responsibility. As a white woman of privilege, this is my responsibility to support my brothers and sisters of colour and Indigenous people in any capacity that I have, on my platform, in my family, with my children, in my relationships, and make a really clear stance that I will not tolerate and I will not make space for people who are racist. Racial undertoning in my world right now is something that I'm very clear and very focused on weeding out. I've made references on my social media page. I've had emails, and all this BS about spiritual wording of all is one and all lives matter. It's not about all is one and one lives matter. Not all is one. If you have a group of people like the Black and Indigenous and people of colour, if you have a group of people that are persecuted because of the colour of their skin, all is not one. All is not one. And I'm a very... a lot of my philosophy is based in unconditional love and compassion. And I don't dislike people or not holding people because, without love when they're in fear. But I will not. My boundary is that don't hide behind your spiritual shit. Any healer who's listening to me right now, don't hide behind the spiritual jargon and the spiritual shit that we have learnt. This is not a time for OMS. This is not a time for, one love. This is a time now in this modern, the guru lineage is dying. This is a time now that we need to activate our own innate healing abilities, and we need to start to help other people to activate theirs, no matter what race, no matter where they come from. And it is only then, when we're all working towards, actively, not just in a word or in a meditation or in some kind of spiritual woo-woo kind of practice, we've got to root this and ground this into the work, into the life, into community. We need to make a stand here. And because I'm making a stand as a spiritual person doesn't mean that I hold hatred in my body or anger. I hold the boundary of enough. Enough is enough. So please don't give me I've got to hold people who are afraid. I am holding people who are afraid. I am holding them, but I will not make space for those people who continually meet me with, but my life matters too. Yes, your life matters too. This is not a black and white issue here of who is more superior. The whites are already superior, and that's the problem. The issue here, and what I want to say is I am fully in support of Black Lives Matter, during this time, after this time, and for the rest of my journey. And it doesn't make me an angry person. It doesn't make me less spiritual. It doesn't make me less loving or compassionate. I really feel that this boundary and this fire brings me into the heart and center of what love and compassion is. And that is acceptance for all. And you cannot have acceptance for who you are as a person, no matter what color you are and where you are standing in life, if you are not first dismantling all the systemic, cultural and patriarchal ways that you have built barriers and you have segmented and you have created a life where you don't have to look at this stuff. And I really feel this is not even a white issue when I talk about this. We need to stop. We're creating lives where we don't talk about things that are happening, painful, deep, shadow stuff that's happening in our day to day, bringing in the domestic violence again, racism, child sexual abuse. Why are we not talking about this stuff? Where is the language here? Why do we keep turning our head to our privileged, lives, our white privileged lives, and pretending that our children are not being abused sexually by people that are grooming us as parents? People in our community, every community. Why are we not talking about women? Why are men not stepping up and calling out their male mates when they are, when there's abusive undertoning of women at barbecues, in family dynamics, in fucking picnics? Why are men not standing up and saying, hey mate, don't speak to your wife like that? Why are we not standing up, in our communities or at barbecues and saying, hey, don't talk about, black people or people of colour like that, and don't talk about Indigenous people like they are, like they don't have rights, like they've got issues in their community and it's their problem. It's our problem. It's our problem. And we need to stop pretending and zenning out and going above into the great spirit and using spirituality as a cop-out to remain all zen-like and all in love and all positive vibes and all love and compassion. And, we can't be of any use to the world unless we root that stuff into the earth and we start to actively walk the talk. The talk is useless. The talk doesn't bring unity, doesn't bring solidarity, doesn't raise evolution and consciousness. The talk is another drug. It's another blind spot. It's a spot where we fall asleep. When we're talking about the hard stuff, when we're bringing and it's opening us, that's where we remain awake. That's where we confront the patriarchy, the cultural, systemic cultural racism, our own white supremacy. If you're finding it hard as a white person to have a conversation and looking at yourself, then you have a problem. You have a problem. Because this should be activating you on the inside. This is not about you. And as a healer, as a woman who's been 20 years on this path, healing her own trauma from sexual and childhood abuse, healing my own disease in my body, healing my own mother line, reclaiming myself, making passageway and pathways for my children, the hard conversations and the emotion that rises because of it, even the most painful, needs the air to breathe. And it's our job as, if you're on a spiritual path and you're doing this work, it's your job and your responsibility to bring this into the light, to bring all of it into the light, to bring that the George Floyd and all the other Black people, Indigenous people and people of colour who've died because of the way they look or because of their culture. It brings them in. It honours them. It honours their family. Someone needs to take responsibility here. You cannot just say it's someone else's problem. We each have a part. What's happening in America right now and what's happening in other parts of the world is a collective consciousness. We each have a part, and every day we walk in our path is every step is fueling or making peace with what is in the world. You cannot make peace for something you refuse to see and refuse to acknowledge and just focus on the positives here. I've said this, but I, publicly from myself, want to say I'm sorry for my contribution to this. It lays heavy in my system. I've resuming work very, very tentatively. The work that I'm doing right now, everything is changing to make way for what being actively anti-racist is for me, and my part in that, and my family's part that I take responsibility for. And I invite conversation in this. I don't have the answers. I've been asked to do a circle on the work, on an anti-racist circle, and I'm sitting here at the beginning of my own journey, and potentially that's something that's going to come in the next week or 2 weeks, maybe not a circle, but maybe an invitation for people who'd like to join me on a Zoom call where we can discuss this and embody what's going on, the pain and the discomfort that is laying heavy, with what rises with talking about this issue and talking about this area. And I'll send an email and invite people if they'd like to come to that. The tool that I could probably leave you best with right now in how to deal with this, because my body's been, as a healer, I take consciousness and the collective consciousness, and it embeds in my body, and I feel it in my body. It's an embodied practice, and I work with it through the body to move it through. I've had aches and pains last week in my body, all body aches and pains. The pain so tremendously debilitating for what is happening in the world right now. And the clearest advice that I can give as an embodiment practitioner and a body worker is to remain very close to how you're feeling. I don't have the answers right now, except that I've proclaimed that I'm actively anti-racist, and I will call out people who have racial undertoning, the same as I will call out people who have abuse undertoning, and I will advocate for children who are sexually abused. The pain, the practice here is to remain with what's rising in the body, is to remain with the pain, remain with the discomfort, remain with what you're feeling, to give space to that nourishment, to rest when you need to meditate when you need to take baths when you need to be with the people that you love, to talk about this, start bringing words to how you're feeling in your body, journal, write, whatever feels nourishing for you right now. I really encourage you to focus there. Don't be afraid to see yourself in an unfavorable light. This is the edge here. This is the work. If to see yourself and see what needs healing is the work, and then to bring compassion to yourself and to your family line and to this issue is the work. And you cannot bring compassion and love and embody compassion and love for all beings if you first cannot embody compassion and love for this topic or these things that are happening in the world that you're not looking at. A whole embodied, self-love starts with looking at the places that you're too afraid to go. So look at the place, read the books, take the time, listen to the audios. There is a huge amount of resources out there, and it's your job. Don't rely on the Black and Indigenous community. It's our job. It's our job to take up the baton here and to do the work and to learn, to have the hard conversation and to look at ourselves and learn in our communities on how we can address this directly and how we can, talk to our children about this and how we can talk to others about this. There's a massive amount of resources. I've been posting about people on Instagram and Facebook. There is, I know Awakening Women has been posting, a huge amount of, businesses run by people of colour, Indigenous people, and things, causes or pathways you can get on board to show your support. But here it's showing up and being willing to have those conversations. This is quite an emotional topic for me, and I'm showing up anyway, right here. Probably not so very clear, but I'm willing to go there, and it's my absolute responsibility to do so. I really hope that you can remain really close to how you're feeling, tracking those emotions, giving yourself lots of rest, building a support network around you of people who are actively anti-racist as well, or supporting you through finding out about what racism is. There's no right or wrong way here, but it's no longer can you fence sit here. From my heart to yours, if you're fence sitting, you're a racist. So that might cut deep, but it needs to cut deep, because we are not living in a time right now where we can sit on the fence any longer. I'm sending everybody in the Black and colour and Indigenous community my love. My heart is, I'm standing with you. My family's standing with you. I invite you, if you want to talk about this further, as I said, the Zoom call, I'm still feeling into that, but I feel that's probably where I'm going to head with this. Can email me. You can put a message. I'm going to post it to social media. It's going out into my subscriber list as well. Post a message to me privately. post a message below, but I will ask you, if you contact me, please be aware of how you are framing your questions and how you are framing your inquiries. Bring some reflection into how this is feeling in you and what your where your edges are, where your contractions are on this topic, because I will not make space for any racist comments at all. I will delete them. I don't need to explain myself. I don't, I can educate those people that I feel that can be educated, but I will not have you on my social media pages. I will not have you in my community. If you are wanting to explore anti-racism and you want to explore, things openly, and you are really committed to having a conversation where you are open and responsible and accountable for who you are, what you've done, and how you're feeling, I'm very much going to meet you in the middle and have that conversation with you. But I'm not asking you to educate me. I'm not asking you to push your insecurities of what it is to be white or your all lives matter type rubbish. I'm not interested in any of that. And please don't quote some sort of spiritual leader in this that kind of blankets the whole situation, because I'm not open for that either. My community is a very sacred place, and I'm only going to be spending my time with people who are holding themselves responsibly, honouring themselves and honouring me and honouring the community that I'm building through Bryony Montgomery and Women's Inner Wisdom. So I invite you, if you want to have those conversations, please email me. If you have any resources or anything that you would like me to be to have my focus or attention on, please, I invite that as well, because I'm learning too. And I just want to say, we've just had two big huge hawks flying over our property, which I find strengthening and comforting while I'm doing this video with you at the moment. So if you got to the end of the video, I didn't expect it to be this long, but I do tend to talk. So thank you for listening, for watching, and I wish you, right now, all the love and strength and nourishment. And it's so wonderful to be able to do this work and share share what's going on inside, in this type of way. And I really appreciate those that have reached out to me and emailed me and shown their support, as well as to the people I've had the hard conversations with, and I'll continue to, and the Indigenous and people of colour who've been so graceful in me, holding me and listening to me while I stumble through, what it is, what my part in this whole situation is. And I hope that that I can continue to do that, for you as well. So yeah, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.